Let's turn our attention to what is going in the Tory leadership contest and indeed what's happening in the House of Lords. Let's talk to Lord Robert Hayward. He's a Conservative peer and pollster, of course, as well. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk first of all about the Tory leadership contest. 6 Tories whittled down to 5 yesterday. I suppose not necessarily a big surprise that Robert Jenrick, who's perhaps one of the most sort of junior in terms of his previously held office candidates, were coming top with 28 votes. Doesn't sound like very many, but only 121 Tories to vote. Kemi Badenoch, the favourite by a long way according to all polls, with party members coming second with 22 votes. Then James Cleverly at 21 votes. And Tom Tugendhat, the Shadow Security Minister, coming fourth with 17 votes. But surprisingly, Mel Stride, who many people thought would have been out on the first ballot, had 16, and Priti Patel just 14. She then falls out and they go to the second round of voting next Monday. But were you surprised that Priti Patel, once considered long considered a possible future leader of the party, has fallen at the first hurdle?
No, I thought it would either be Mel Stride or Priti Patel who would go out in the first round. Can I just comment on one thing you just said, and that is the question of the polls. The polls that are cited in the media are self-selecting groups. Right?
Yeah.
Opinion polls have a pretty bad record anyway from the general election. But Con Home, Politics Home, Communications in Conservatives, they are self-selecting groups.
Right.
So take no notice of them whatsoever. Take pretty little notice of the, pretty probably an unfortunate pun, but take no notice of polls in general, because if they can't get national polls right, they're certainly not going to get a poll of a poll of a poll right. And
it's just a few, it really is a very, very small number of people. That's a very, very good point to make. But in terms of the front runners, I mean, a lot of the speculation was, last night, though, there's no doubt at all that Robert Jenrick was one of the big winners yesterday. But also actually James Cleverly, because it looks like, that he came ahead of Tom Tugendhat. So he seemed to be seen on the sort of the supposedly left One Nation side of the party. And that despite so much going on with Tom Tugendhat's campaign, and he met you out and about on the media, that actually it was James Cleverly who beat him. Will we see voters, not just like someone who, say, voted for, say, Tom Tugendhat or Mel Stride in the first round, actually moving their vote to the second round, even though their candidate's still in? Is that what normally happens?
No, it doesn't normally happen, but there will be some people who will have honoured a commitment that they would vote for Priti Patel, for example, or vote for an individual and say, well, I've done it once, but I'm now going to vote for the person I want to see in the final four. What I would expect is that the Priti Patel votes will move more towards Robert Jenrick, but that will probably be where he maxes out. So next week, the next round comes up, I think he'll do well. But as you say, James Cleverly, better than expected. Tom Tugendhat, probably worse than expected.
And if we do end up, we've got 4 candidates going before Tory party membership at the party conference, and then they're going to be whittled down again to 2 by the Tory MPs. It's a very long-winded process. Doesn't end till a ballot of Tory party members decides, and the vote announced on the 2nd of November. But everyone expects there's going to be someone on the sort of, the One Nation side and someone on the right wing of the party. The obvious rivals for those 2 roles. Who do you think, if you had to put money on it, I know you don't like to do this, but who do you think will be those final 2 candidates?
I think your speculation as to the final 2 in itself is possibly wrong.
Interesting.
Because as you say, you're dealing with very small numbers of MPs, and the margin between Robert Jenrick at the top and Priti Patel at the bottom was very small.
Yeah.
And therefore trying to speculate as to where people's votes will go as their own particular candidate falls out is pretty difficult, because MPs don't only vote in relation to their actual political position, but their preferences in terms of ability and friendships and respect.
Also, whether they think they'd get a job. Come on, let's be honest.
Enough, it was much more blatant on the leadership votes last time round than it has been this time round.
Yeah.
I think people recognise the folly and the bad odour that this generated in public, where people were patently bidding for jobs.
Yeah. Also, a job in government is a bit different with your ministerial card, your red box and your extra pay. It's rather different from being, you know, the shadow minister for paperclips for the next 4 years.
You put your finger on one aspect of it. It's work and hard work being a shadow spokesman or woman. Massive effort with relatively little support.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and it won't surprise many of your viewers and listeners, that several of the MPs will probably say, oh, I'm going to support you to several different candidates.
Shocking.
But they've only got one vote. Who would suggest such matters?
Secret ballots do that to people. Yes, it's outrageous, outrageous. Well, let's talk about other people who get a vote on how our laws are made in this country, and that are peers like your good self. Now, look. Many countries have two different chambers that make laws. We talk incessantly, don't we, about Congress in America with the Senate and with the House of Representatives. But of course, ours, pretty uniquely, upper chamber has been for many years having hereditary peers. Now, for many years, it was only hereditary peers. In my lifetime, many of them have been booted out. I think it was 82 left in the House
92.
of 92 in the House of Lords who are hereditary. They actually had weirdly an election between them over who should stay. It was quite bizarre. But many of them, most of the peers, and most of those certainly who go and have their say and debate and to get involved, are people like you who've been appointed, people with a track record of some kind. We've also got an awful lot of people who've been donors who get jobs which in the House of Lords, which I'm not happy about. But the decision by Labour, it was one of their manifesto commitments, to abolish the final 92 peerages, that they're going to be bringing in legislation today for that. Do you agree with that?
Yes. And I'm watching the clock carefully because there's going to be a statement in the House of Lords in about 15 minutes, and I'm going down to listen to that statement. But it is an anachronism.
Yeah.
There's lots of changes I would make to the House of Lords, and I'd take away the process by which a Prime Minister can grant their friends peerages.
Yeah.
Having the House of Lords as a house of experts on subjects unelected, I see as reasonable. We review and revise legislation, but ultimately the Commons must be allowed to take their decisions.
Yeah.
But the hereditary peerages are an anachronism, and it's no surprise, and I will, for one, support that decision that we move away from hereditary.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the idea that because someone's, great grandfather did a deal with the king and got a nice bit of land or something that got dukedom, and that person should therefore have more say on the laws of the land of this country than I do, any of my audience do. I mean, it's an absolute outrage. I'm amazed that anyone thinks that should still be happening. I'm stunned it's still the case. But I still also got a bit of an issue with the number of people, I mean, I like you, in terms of people being appointed. I mean, I know people who've been made peers, people I was at uni with. It's just because they know the right people. But people who used to work here who are 30 years old who are now a peer. And I'm sorry, the idea that at 30 years old you've got anything useful to add from your expertise, it's different if you've got someone who's been an engineer, a doctor, run business, who can put in some long-standing experience and knowledge of the world. That's different. But I still do have an issue with the fact that I think the people should be democratically elected and accountable to the people.
I wouldn't agree with the election, but as you say, as far as I'm concerned, Lord Norton put forward a bill in the last session that people could only be appointed if they had, quote, conspicuous merit. And in other words, if they are national experts. You look at the chamber, I mean it, you do not speak on something that you just idly think, oh, I'll make a comment. Because there are national and international experts, whether it's in medicine, engineering, the law, the arts. We've got people in here who are major contributors to the arts in different ways. Sport, Danny Gray Thompson, who you see on television on a regular.
Sebastian Coe, people like that. Yeah, no, fair enough. No, absolutely. Can I ask, what's your conspicuous merit?
Well, probably my prime one is elections law.
Excellent. No, I'm not being cheeky. I thought the audience would go, well, what? How come he's got the job? Lord Hayward, I'm going to let you go. You want to get to that speech. Good to know. Got
the
politicians.
other aspects are LGBT. very active.
On those, you don't have to justify yourself to us, Robert. We're happy to have you. Lord Hayward, Conservative peer and policy, has got to go off and listen to that speech. He's a very active player in the House of Lords. Philip Pickard, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. One, on the leadership. The Tory party will also be recognising that they might be electing a leader for opposition, not necessarily the next Tory Prime Minister.
I think it's very unlikely they would still be the next leader at the next election.
Exactly. And then when it comes to the House of Lords, I agree with it being a house of experts, not elected, people who've contributed to society.
If you worked for the PM for a few years,
no,
you wrote speeches,
and then people are time limited. You don't have an appointment for life. So you've got an appointment for a period of time, because experts will change. You lose your currency in what's going on, so you lose your expertise.
Absolutely.
And you get that in.
It's certainly not hereditary.
If you make it elected, you then politicise it, and its strength would be to be apolitical completely. Experts that are holding the politicians to account.
Okay. Again, I know a lot of people like saying the Brexit campaign is good, and I said, look, I don't approve of the House of Lords, but if we're going to have a House of Lords, I'm glad the likes of, the Claire Foxes and others are in it.